The lie of an innocent form. The wheel is taught as innocence. A simple circle, a child's drawing, the symbol of progress. History books frame it as humanity's first great leap forward, a harmless solution to a physical problem, how to move heavy things with less effort. But this framing hides something essential. The wheel did not simply reduce effort. It redefined power. Before the wheel, movement depended on muscle, endurance, and time. Distance was a barrier. Weight was a limit. Communities were naturally local, slow, and constrained by the human body. The moment weight could roll instead of being carried, those limits dissolved. What followed was not just convenience. What followed was acceleration, and acceleration always changes who wins. Ownership of the movement has changed. In early human societies, movement belonged to individuals. If you could walk, you could travel. If you could carry, you could trade. The wheel broke that symmetry. Suddenly, movement required tools. Tools required materials. Materials required organization. Organization required authority. Carts, wagons, and transport systems didn't appear in isolation. They emerged inside structures of control. Someone owned the wheels. Someone maintained the roads. Someone decided who could use them. Movement stopped being a personal ability and became an infrastructure privilege. And infrastructure is never neutral. The birth of the path, the birth of power. Wheels demand roads. A wheel without a road is inefficient. A road without authority is impossible. The earliest roads were not built for freedom. They were built for administration, moving goods, armies, and taxes. Roads connected centers of power to their peripheries, not people to each other. Where roads went, power followed. Where roads didn't go, people were left behind. Distance became political. The wheel turned geography into hierarchy. Logistics, the invisible empire. Empires are often remembered for their armies. They should be remembered for their logistics. An army that cannot move food collapses. A state that cannot move resources disintegrates. The wheel made movement predictable, and predictability made domination scalable. With wheels, rulers could move grain reliably, extract surplus, enforce borders, suppress rebellion. Control no longer required constant violence. It required circulation. The wheel didn't conquer lands. It made conquest sustainable. The new ethics of speed. Once movement became faster, slowness became suspicious. If goods could arrive sooner, why didn't they? If people could travel faster, why wouldn't they? Speed transformed from advantage into expectation. Communities that moved slowly were labeled backward. Bodies that resisted speed were labeled weak. Time itself was reframed as something to be optimized. The wheel introduced a moral hierarchy of speed. Faster meant better, slower meant failure. Externalization of the body. Before wheels, the body was central. After wheels, the body became auxiliary. Carts replaced backs. Chariots replaced legs. Eventually, machines replaced muscle entirely. Strength no longer determined value. Compatibility with systems did. The body adapted, but at a cost. Sedentary dependence increased. Physical awareness declined. Movement became something you entered rather than performed. Humans stopped moving themselves. They were moved. Silence of control. The most powerful technologies don't feel controlling. They feel helpful. The wheel never orders anyone. It doesn't demand obedience. It simply makes alternatives inefficient. Walking becomes impractical. Carrying becomes unreasonable. Stopping becomes expensive. Choice remains in theory, but not in practice. This is how dependency is created without force. The disappearance of the stop. With wheels, stopping lost its legitimacy. If movement is possible, stopping must be justified. Rest becomes delay. Pause becomes waste. Idleness becomes failure. Systems built on wheels cannot tolerate stillness. They require flow, and humans inside those systems learn to keep moving, even when movement no longer serves them. The wheel did not just move humanity forward. It locked humanity into motion. By redefining movement, it redefined power. By normalizing speed, it normalized exhaustion. By enabling control without violence, it made domination invisible. And this was only the beginning. Because once everything can move, everything can be pushed. Institutionalization of speed. The moment wheels multiplied, speed stopped being an advantage and became a requirement. Early wheels moved goods. Later wheels moved schedules. As societies scaled, coordination replaced survival as the primary challenge. Markets, cities, and armies no longer needed strength, they needed timing. The wheel made time measurable through movement. Arrival times could be predicted. Delays could be punished. Speed became institutional, and institutions don't tolerate inefficiency. Industrial necessity. The Industrial Revolution did not invent speed. It demanded it. Factories relied on wheels everywhere. Spinning wheels, conveyor systems, transport carts, rotating machinery. Production lines were built around motion, not humans. Workers adapted to machines, not the other way around. The wheel synchronized bodies to systems. Once synchronized, deviation became disruption. Mechanization of time. Before industrial wheels, time was experienced. After them, time was counted. Clocks and wheels evolved together. Rotations replaced rhythms. Shifts replaced daylight. Productivity replaced presence. Time stopped belonging to nature. It belonged to systems. And systems measure worth in output. The faster you moved, the more valuable you became. Division of the body. The wheel allowed labor to fragment. Tasks were no longer holistic. They were rotational. One motion, repeated endlessly. One position, optimized for output. Bodies were no longer tools, they were attachments. Pain became background noise. Fatigue became normalized. The wheel didn't just reduce physical strain. It redistributed it invisibly. Psychology of moving. When wheels carry everything, humans stop carrying responsibility. Distance feels shorter. Consequences feel delayed. Harm feels abstract. This is not accidental. Wheels separate action from impact. What you consume doesn't feel heavy. What you waste doesn't feel close. What you exploit doesn't feel personal. Mobility anesthetizes accountability. Cities, rotating machines. Cities are machines made of wheels. Traffic systems, public transport, delivery routes, supply chains, circular flows of labor and consumption. Urban life depends on continuous motion. A stopped city is considered broken. Stillness becomes threat. The wheel turns cities into organisms that must constantly move to survive. Speed and status. Speed became a marker of power. Those who could move faster had access, better jobs, better services, better safety. Those who moved slowly were left behind, physically and socially. The wheel created a hierarchy of mobility, and mobility inequality became destiny. Accidents and normalization. Where wheels dominate, accidents are inevitable. But inevitability breeds acceptance. Injuries, collisions, exhaustion, pollution, these became acceptable losses. The system learned to price them in. Human cost was externalized. Progress continued. Childhood and loss of movement. Children once learned the world by moving through it. Now they are moved through it. Wheeled transport replaced exploration. Streets became hostile. Walking became dangerous. Play became supervised. The wheel didn't just reshape labor. It reshaped development. The fundamentals of automation. Automation is impossible without wheels. Robots don't walk, they roll. Factories, warehouses, and logistics hubs rely on continuous rotational motion. The wheel is the silent backbone of automation. As wheels multiplied, humans became optional. Efficiency replaced employment. The paradox of progress. The wheel promised freedom. What it delivered was dependency. You cannot opt out of movement without opting out of society. To live, you must move. To work, you must move. To belong, you must keep up. Freedom exists only at system speed. The wheel reshaped bodies, cities, and time itself. It didn't just accelerate life. It narrowed the acceptable pace of existence. And once speed defines value, everything slow becomes disposable. In the final part, we will confront the modern endpoint of this evolution, a world where wheels move everything, and humans struggle to stop. Movement as destiny. The wheel no longer feels like an invention. It feels like reality. Modern life accepts movement as the default. Cities, economies, and daily routines are dependent on constant circulation. Movement is expected. Stillness feels wrong. Over time, the wheel ceased to be a tool and became a medium. What once helped people move silently began to dictate how life itself should function. The danger of stillness. Systems built on wheels cannot stand still. When movement slows, fear arises, crisis, collapse, failure. Rest is no longer neutral. It is treated as a risk. The wheel convinced civilization that movement equals survival. Standing still is no longer rest. It has become exclusion. Human and system. Automation evolved naturally. Machines moved tirelessly. Systems prioritize reliability over humanity. Movement became detached from the body, and humans lost their central roles. Humans became replaceable controllers of systems they could no longer control. The wheel gave humanity access and power, but it also locked civilization into motion. What began as freedom became obligation. The final question is not whether we can stop. Will we still be able to choose why we move?